Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast, your go-to resource for hidden growth opportunities throughout online business. For those familiar and new to the podcast, I'm Sarah, and thanks for joining me today. In this episode, I'll be talking to Simon Treulle, the founder of Pangolia, an online publishing company that owns multiple businesses within the pet niche. So Simon explains why he left home at 19 years old for Chaing Mai, Thailand, in hopes of becoming an online entrepreneur. Within just a few years, he's managed to start several successful content sites in the lucrative pet niche and has now moved on to acquisitions to continue to build his portfolio. Simon walks us through what it takes to run multiple businesses successfully and how he found the right team and talent to help him scale his portfolio. If you want to learn how to turn a single content site into a multi-business empire, you don't want to miss out on this conversation. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast. Today's guest is Simon Treulle. I have to warn you that I think everyone might be a little bit jealous after hearing this episode. He was an incredibly young SEO who had moved to Chaing Mai early on. Anyway, we'll get into it, but I think everyone's going to be jealous that they didn't make the same moves as Simon early on in their lives. So Simon, how you doing today?
Doing really, really well. It's a good day and things are rolling and everything's great.
Awesome. Okay, so spoiling the story somewhat, but you started this crazy SEO journey at a really young age, and you ended up moving to Chaing Mai. So walk me through how you first learned about SEO and this online industry and where that discovery has since taken you.
Sure, yeah. So how about we start with what I'm doing right now? So right now I live in Chaing Mai, Thailand. It's an amazing place. I love it. And amazing culture and everything. And I am the CEO and founder of Pangolia, which is a pet company. And we basically have 65 people, and we recently acquired an e-commerce brand, cat furniture brand. We've now grown from 100 to 40,000 daily readers within the last 10 months. So, of course, that's like looking at where I am right now. But, let's dive back and try and talk about like sort of stumbling into this online marketing kind of digital nomad sort of world. Yeah.
Yeah, please. So, it's just wild. I'm glad you put that in perspective because it's like so impressive to have kind of landed where you are today. And I think landed is maybe not the right word because I know there's a whole hell of a lot of work that went into that.
Yeah,
so how did you go from, you've now got this established portfolio, but you left your home of Denmark at about 19. What was going on there?
So, I was teenager, 19, and I just finished high school. And I had always sort of like run like online businesses a little bit, like very small scale, very short-sighted while I was in high school. And, it's like, so I think one of my first sites was called bestssd2015.com. It's like these review site that talks about like the different computer hard drives and the best one you can get in 2015. And, obviously, I think I started that one when I was 15. And obviously, 2015.com, like that's not going to be very long-term and not super. Well, it did work. And I did like a push-up with my cousin for every dollar we made initially. And that's why I'm so buff and so big right now. That's a joke. We stopped with the push-ups quite.
It'd probably get a little bit tiring after making all those dollars and getting all those visitors. Like, I can't keep up with this.
That's true, yeah. And before sort of starting that niche sites, just like anyone, I tried to get like a supermarket job. I was like 15. I tried to apply to like 3 different supermarkets. And just didn't hear anything, and just like not even a rejection, just like cold silence, right? So I think that kind of light like a fire inside me, like, we sort of have to figure out something, right? Because no one's going to give it to you. So that made me start like that Best SSD website, which made a bit. And I think what a lot of people also talk about is, that first dollar kind of lights a bulb in your head. And then you're like, oh, I can, do this and I can grow this. And then I added like, I found that you could hire smart individuals from the Philippines Then I started, with like one or two and just sort of helping me on the side. And yeah, so that's basically the start there. Then, end of high school, and I didn't want to go to university. I was like, I want to try something new, just like most people when they finish high school in Denmark, like, let's go somewhere, right? So I saw Chaing Mai had like a conference coming up, Chaing Mai SEO conference in 2017. I was like, sure, like, let's try going there for 3 months and just seeing if this kind of like, I saw this digital nomad sort of lifestyle. And I was kind of interested in seeing what it was like. And I had never spoken with anyone face to face about like online marketing and SEO and like digital marketing. So I was curious and wanted to see what that was like. Yeah.
I mean, what was that like going from, I'd imagine that you didn't have like a huge community around you in Denmark and certainly not in your high school doing these online sites. And all of a sudden you go to the epicenter of SEO. I mean, was that just kind of like a weird feeling? Like, whoa, wait a minute. They're all doing what I'm doing, except on a way, further along down their path. Like, I want this.
Yeah. So it was surreal. Like, I had sort of looked up to some of these people when I was back home, right? And suddenly you're seeing these people and you could walk down the street and people would talk about like nerdy things like anchor text and, like it was great. And actually one of my first days, so I met two good friends. And like one of the first days when I was in Chaing Mai, like we got Korean barbecue and we sat down and, they've made it, like they've exited their sites and they've, sold their businesses. They did just what I was, dreaming of, right? So we sat down and that was actually like pretty hard sort of dinner because they grilled my business. Like they're like friendly about it, but it was like, well, why are you doing this? Like, why are you overthinking this thing? Why are you overpaying for this? And it was just like, like, I remember going to sleep that night and it was not fun because I was, when I moved to Chiang Mai, my online business was losing money. So it's like, oh, I'll go to bed now. And when I wake up, I've lost like $100, right? Like, fuck that. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's not a problem. It's so funny because it's like, I don't know who was grilling you, but I mean, you were 19, I mean, I was wondering how the community kind of responded to you. It sounds like they embraced you and took you on and took what you were doing seriously enough to give you advice. But was it a little bit weird I mean, I know there's a huge age range, but I don't think you get loads of 19-year-olds. Maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me.
Well, there are some young people sometimes in Chiang Mai and Asia traveling around. But I guess you just sort of, your friends are maybe a little bit older sometimes. And that's cool, right? Like, yeah, it was cool. It seemed pretty natural. And no one really talked about that or pointed it out too much. Like, I could still grab a beer with people, right? So
yeah. I mean, that's amazing. That's like a beautiful thing. I don't think that'd be common in many industries to get such a young newcomer and to treat them with the same respect as like, you are in this game trying to build your business just like I am. And I don't care that you're fresh out of high school. Like, let's talk about it. So that's awesome. I think a lot of people listening to this, if they're a bit younger, would be really inspired by that and be like, okay, maybe I can do this and move there.
We talk about this a lot also, how like if someone has like left their home country to move to Thailand or like Asia, they're pretty serious about something. Like they want to do something, right? So that really like means that, people want to invest a little bit more time with, these newcomers and everything. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I mean, I was wondering, so walk me through, you're in Chiang Mai and you are getting your footing. You're realizing, okay, I might be doing a couple things wrong with my sites. I need to pivot. Tell me about your journey to get your, first sites up and running. Granted, I know you came with some, but I imagine you're starting to build new things while there. What was it like kind of getting your first win with your site and who or what helped you get there?
So my first win, well, obviously I had some wins before moving to Chiang Mai, but honestly, I don't remember that. Like, obviously the first win was the first dollar made back in Denmark originally, right? But I think it's hard to pinpoint like one sort of thing or like one sort of tip or something or a person or that first win because it's a lot of steps. Like it was like I had to revamp the whole goddamn thing, right? So as I talked about before, it was sort of a depressing feeling going to sleep and then knowing, oh, I'll wake up and I've lost $100. Yay, right? As opposed to like, oh, I can go to this board games and, everything will run in the background and, ha ha ha, right? Like, yeah, so that's a big shift.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so interesting. Like, I mean, gosh, in your shoes, I might have been a little bit deterred landing on the ground and then hearing you're doing all this stuff wrong with your site and then figuring out, gosh, like, how am I going to rebuild this? And I want to have a win like all these people around me who have these successful sites. So kudos to you that you kind of decided to dive in. You weren't deterred by the site losing money at the time and you just went and revamped everything.
Yeah. Well, you had to do it, right? Like I wanted to live this life so badly. Like I wanted to be able to live here. This lifestyle I saw something in it, right? So that's why I was like, I could get up at 7 and just sit down and work until like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., no problem. So again, the first couple of months in Chiang Mai, like it was not, sitting at the beach and sipping coconuts and working at the beach. Like it was pretty hardcore, 10 to 12, 15-hour days sometimes in the start. Yeah. But, that's a choice.
Yeah, I think that's a common misperception of what digital nomads are doing, especially in a place like Chiang Mai. They think, oh, you're just kind of having a load of fun. I know you do have fun, but people don't see the 15-hour days. They don't see what it took to get for so many entrepreneurs there to be successful. I'm curious, like, how long did it take you of that kind of grind to get a good cadence? All of a sudden the businesses are running, cash is coming in, things are going pretty well. How long did that take?
So going from like losing money, not losing a ton, but just losing like a couple $1,000, like losing maybe like, I don't remember how much it was, but it was not like crazy negative, right? It was just like not making anything really. But I think it took like pretty much 1 to 1.5 years in Chiang Mai. Like it's quite a bit.
Okay. Wow.
So that's also with the business model and SEO and like, those things take time, right? But if I was a translator, like translating from English to Danish, like I could have probably have been making solid money a lot faster, but the long term of that maybe wouldn't be the same. Yeah.
So even though you had to really put in a year's worth of work to get it up and running, you felt like you were still doing the right thing. I'm sure it might have been tempting sometimes to be like, should I just be translating? Would that be a little bit easier right now?
But it was fun, right? And it was sort of knowing like there must be something. Like I was learning web design and I was learning like, sort of a little bit of SEO, like understanding that, and like management too, like working with these, brilliant Filipinos. So I had this belief or hope that what I was learning would pay off one day when I did that. So that helped a lot because otherwise it would be pretty hard to, keep putting in that time. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, well, take me then to, we're going back to where you are today and your kind of umbrella company, Pangolia. So you're operating in the pet niche, right? So tell me about why you chose to stay and build within that vertical.
So obviously it didn't come from day one that we're like, okay, let's go for pets, right? Like that took a long time. So when we started, it was like, we had content sites, like, websites with information about like so many different topics. And, that worked pretty well until like 2020. So there's both like a pretty Google algorithm update that didn't do too well for us, but there was also the Amazon commission cut. So suddenly we had all these different sites that were kind of not the best of the best in all these different niches, right? And that's where we made the decision just to pick one and go like all in on it. So we can understand the monetization, so we can understand the audience, so we can provide the best experience and just really double down on the things that we hope will work. So that's where we then chose pets because it was kind of random actually. We already had like pet sites that were doing quite well and, pandemics and pets, people get, and it's recession proof. And I love pets, so it's pretty good. But, not to say that pets is like, amazing. Like I think it's just one of many good niches and it's pretty damn competitive. Yeah. But I chose that one because of, all those and really focusing on like not getting distracted by other niches. Yeah.
I mean, that's super interesting. Like you said, it's really competitive. We've had loads of people on this podcast who are niche down into pets. I know it's a fantastic niche. I mean, when you get it right, they can be lucrative, stable, recession-proof sites, like you said. But of course, it comes at the cost of everyone is in there trying to do the same thing. So I think it's quite impressive that you've been able to carve out a corner in a niche that was definitely not easy to carve a corner out in.
Yeah, it's not been easy, that's for sure. It's not meant to be easy.
Well, I wanted to know a little bit more about, we're talking about now you have several businesses and maybe that's backtracking a little bit. I'm curious here, like, how did you make that jump from owning one business to owning several? And I guess this is in terms of like building your own. Like, when did you know it was the right time to go, okay, I need to start branching out more sites, more sites? Because that's not always an easy question for a lot of people. They might get stuck on maybe one or two and they're like, God, am I going to break what's going well if I start adding too much to the mix? So I was curious if there was like a secret sauce to that for you.
Let me recap. So we, as Pangolia, we own a brand called Hepper and we sell modern cat furniture and it's an e-commerce business. So we have one e-commerce brand that's like all in on cat furniture. But then we also have like a couple of content sites in the pet space too. So that's sort of the overview of our, core portfolio. Obviously, there's this huge synergy between, so we have this cat furniture site, right? Like Hepper. Obviously, if we have like content site, then there's a huge synergy between them where we can, if we have another content site, we can then mention Hepper sometimes and drive sales to Hepper. But actually, this is also goes a little bit into a trend or, a long-term trend that seems to be happening. So obviously, we're receiving a lot of our traffic at this current moment from Google, and it's great. But there's been this trend where it's like, higher authority sites getting like more and more of the pie, right? Like, and all of us people with like smaller sites, we're getting all the breadcrumbs, right? Like you see this trend and that trend is not looking like it's reversing. So, I mean, we used to have like 15 sites and that was quite a lot, but now we have like a lot less than that. Like we're talking like 5-ish. And then of course, 5. So why do we have 5 instead of just 1? Well, that's of course just for a little bit of diversification, right? Like, these algorithm updates, they seem a little bit predictable, but quite unpredictable at times. So we just have a few bets on a couple of different horses in that sense, but also just for, I think that's the primary reason. Yeah. But we definitely don't want to go too many. And I think, 5 is more than plenty.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate getting that picture and seeing where the sense of balance is for you. I mean, you're kind of having to, you want to stay not too risk averse and yet kind of hedge your bets about where we think these algorithm updates are going, which, hey, we know is nearly impossible, but everyone's in the same boat. When it came to acquisitions, like you were just talking about this concept, something that we've talked about a ton at Empire Flippers is like this notion of branching out content sites to e-commerce or consolidating sites. We talk a lot about like bolt-on acquisitions and finding synergies between these two different monetizations. I love that you're doing that. To sort of give a voice to the potential haters for a moment, you're saying that you're a big believer in consolidating these sites and you're merging small sites into a big one. But, naysayers out there, they might say, oh, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. You're not having enough revenue streams if you do that. What would you say to them? And what would you say are the benefits of doing what you're doing?
So the way I see it, and it just goes a little bit back to what I saw before, or what I talked about before, is Google is preferring big, high authority, high DR, like really just these beefy, big type newspaper media sites, like media sites. So the way I see it is we'd much rather have 2 really big, very, very successful sites than have 10 sites that just get nowhere at all. And that seems to be the trend. Like if we just have 10 sites, then okay, sure, maybe we're diversified, right? But we almost like, I think bigger is just better in terms of thriving in these days with Google and like Google preferring authority sites. And, it's a lovely idea to have like 20 sites and, if they can all just make like 10K a month, right? But I think that's maybe a little bit of a fantasy. I think it's better. We would just much rather just have 1 or 2 sites just getting those top spots. It's not going to happen. We're not going to get like 20 sites that are like ranked number top 3. Like that's going to be very, very hard for us. And I don't think we're going to make it if we do that. So that's why we choose so few sites. Yeah.
No, I get that. I mean, especially in your niche, right? Like you really need to be cognizant of what you're doing. You have to make the right acquisitions. You have to make the right moves because one wrong move in such a competitive niche could really undo you. I mean, I would love to know a little bit more about your acquisition process. To me, that's fascinating for you to go from site builder in Chaing Mai to, hey, I know you're still in Chaing Mai, but all of a sudden you're branching into acquisitions. Like that's quite a journey. How do you approach acquisitions? What qualities are you looking for when you go to buy a business?
Yeah. So just a little bit of backstory. So we've bought, I think we bought our first business in 2019, like December 2019. Like it's not that long ago. And that was quite nerve wracking, right? Like I had a little bit of confidence that, we were pretty good with SEO and content sites and we kind of knew the game, but I thought I had to be like a superhuman to buy a site. Like that's what the pros do, right? And I mean, I just started looking, on marketplaces and places. I was kind of curious. And yeah, we found a thing where so we could, instantly just plug in and make some improvements. And I saw where that fit into the portfolio. And then I just went for it and that worked out well. So I was maybe overthinking and thinking I had to be like the superhuman before buying. But actually, in my scenario, I was probably ready earlier than that. But anyways, going from being a like site builder to like actually buying sites. So obviously, I recommend like the first site you start or recommend that you want to start your own site because That way you sort of get a feeling of like, oh, this is how I update my plugins. This is how this works. And if you make a mistake, that mistake won't be as big of an impact. But equally also, if you're building your own sites and it takes forever, right? Like it's hard to make something take off. So that's the negative to that. But anyways, so we went out there and we bought a site because I was very curious about the thing and I wanted to try it. And now having experience and knowledge and more confidence around buying sites and operating them and running them and growing them, it's just a way for us to have a bigger, faster impact rather than building something from scratch, because it's so hard in 2022 to basically, grow something from scratch, because you have to prove to Google that, this website is so good and, you should care about this site instead of all the other high authority sites out there, right? So, and the ugly thing or the annoying thing is like some of these sites were built like, or your competition was maybe built like 20 years ago. They've racked up all those passive links over time. And not only that, but they're also ranking like number, like top 3 in Google. So they're also attracting links from journalists that look for this information, right? Like passive links. So it's hard to get a site off the ground, but it's a good place to start for like learning about how websites work. And then once you build that confidence, you're probably more ready to go out there and acquire a site.
You hit on an important point where you were saying I was probably ready to do this long before I did it. Like that's something I hear commonly from buyers on the show, buyers who got a business from us and then they just scaled it to the moon so much faster than they anticipated. And they're like, why didn't I do this before? And I like what you said about, I thought I needed to be a superhuman to get this done when really, I had what it took to do it, but, I was in my own way for a little bit. So it's great that you finally got past that, realized, oh my gosh, I do know how to do this. And then now you've made, many acquisitions. It seems like this has been like a fast moving train for you ever since you've jumped on.
Yeah, it's been quite busy. But one thing I want to add to that also in terms of like buying sites is like, we've been looking quite consistently for the last now 2 years since we bought that first site. And we're looking like every day for real good businesses. We've only bought a few. So we've looked at many in order to really find the ones that are interesting to us. And we have to pass on a lot. And it's like this really, you build this gut feel over time where you're like, so we only go for something if it's like a hell yes. Like if we could think we can kind of make it work. And if we have a little bit of luck and if things go our way, then it may be a good purchase. That's not quite enough. It needs to be like, okay, we buy this and we're ready to go. And like it just needs to be a hell yes if we buy. So we look at a lot and pass it a lot. And it really needs to be that hell yes.
Well, who's we? And when you're talking about this, do you have like basically a team at the top who are looking at the acquisitions and making calls about the direction of the portfolio?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I get this one a lot. Well, I view this as a team effort. So we have our team and everyone in the company. That's why I say we, because it's really, I would be nothing without, like, obviously we've got this brilliant, great team of 65 people. To answer your question, so this team is great. So I am the ultimate owner of the company and there's not any oversight further up. But what I would say is like every time we're sort of like looking at a deal or considering an acquisition, I'm always consolidating, like I'm always consulting with the team and asking like, is this content great? Like, do you see that fitting in well? So really just everyone's part of the process. So we've got like content department jumping in. We've got like tech guy getting in there like, can we actually merge these sites? Sort of like, yeah, just a lot of people kind of taking a look. And then it's sort of you taking all those inputs and then, Mr. Simon making the final judgment. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I love it. I love that there's a collective sense of all driving in the same direction and trying to build things together. Not every portfolio has that and has that set up. So it's cool. I'm super curious about your move into e-commerce. I know you've talked about it a little bit already, but I guess I'm so biased because it's something that we've talked about a ton in our content and what the potential is. And here you are, you're basically living it out. Talk to me about the transition. Was it easy to get into, e-commerce? And was this just like an entirely different ballgame?
Whenever we bought Hepper, I already had, so before we even entered e-commerce, I had a lot of stuff on my plate and the team had a lot of stuff on their plate. So I knew that if we acquired Hepper, and I was going to be all in on that too, and all in on our content stuff, I was going to like just get exhausted and I may be able to pull it off short term, but I think that would just be like, that would make my life pretty hard. if I was to meet the person who was like also responsible for Hepper. So I knew whenever we did that I needed to find a smart, brilliant, high energy, like just let's go person that would be really interested in growing Hepper as the e-commerce brand. So going into that, I knew, if I'm going to know everything about e-commerce, but also everything about content sites, I'm going to be like the jack of all trades and know absolutely nothing, right? So that's where I made it very, very clear that if we do buy Hepper, which we did, then we were going to go out there and find this smart individual. And luckily we did. We got a really, really great guy who's just fucking awesome. Yeah. So
awesome. So you're able to outsource to the right people to bring them in. I understand you did have a lot on your plate.
I don't know if outsourcing is the right word. It's really like, it's a big collaboration effort, and he's great and he knows a lot more about it than I do at this point. And yeah, so that was that. In terms of like SEO wise, like SEO for e-commerce. So actually we're doing that a little bit different. So, we're actually launching like a lot of blog content and info content on our e-commerce site. So not just like the standard like product, cat, furniture terms, but also like just, what could it be like? My cat peed here, what to do? Or my cat peed here, or, they pee a lot of places, which is pretty good for
yes,
products. But yeah, it's a lot of good keywords because they pee so many places. Yeah.
It's like one of those things that why I will never get into cat ownership, most likely. And I'm in Istanbul right now. I'm surrounded by cats and they're lovely, but I'm like, I know the truth about you guys. Yeah, I see you. You're cute, but you're not coming in the house.
Yeah. But to give you a final answer, like it was not easy to get into e-commerce. Well, we got into it so the start of 2021, like February 2021, it was like right around the supply chain, just, massive thing there. So it's hard to get things done with, suppliers and stuff like that. And, getting into all that whole thing. It's not the best time, but then, so we haven't fully harnessed like the potential of our e-commerce site yet because we've been out of stock and stuff like that. And there's just been a little bit of a headache sometimes, but yeah, we're fighting through it and we're, putting in the effort where we can and make the impact where we can. So when our e-commerce is more in place and we're ready to harness, like, and really just get that out there, then we're ready to go and we have a lot of traffic. So yeah, e-commerce SEO and like content side SEO, I wouldn't really say it's like two different things. Like it's SEO. Like it's just, yeah, I wouldn't say they're that different from what I've seen so far.
Oh, that's cool. And that's really interesting because as an outsider to that, I've always had that question of, are they as common or, are they different? Like what's going on there? You hinted to traffic because that was one thing I did want to talk to you about because my understanding is you've grown Hepper from 100 visitors per day to around 40,000 readers per day. So, slight jump. Can you walk me through the steps you took to achieve that kind of transformation?
Yeah. So our audience, when we bought Hepper, so just a little bit of backstory about Hepper buying that. So it's this brand that's been like around since, not before I was born, but it was been like before 2010, basically, I think like 2005 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But basically by this brilliant product designer. And, he actually designed the cat products himself and he's really smart and there's some beautiful products. Well, he'd been running it for a couple of years and a little bit on decline when we bought it. So it also had a lot of room for us to come in there and improve it. So basically it had also been featured in New York Times and stuff like that. So it had a lot of great, what we're really good at Pangolia is just great content, really great content. Like we have a very high standard for content and then at high scale. So, taking in a site like that, that's got a very high domain authority, domain rating, whatever you call it. And then, just coming in there and giving it a lot of love with new content and stuff like that. I would group it into three big things that we did. So obviously the first chapter is called the Reawakening. So this was basically, so what I discovered was that the site had been hacked actually. So it had like all these different, UGG boots and Nike shirts, NFL shirts, like, the typical, like a lot of hacked pages. So we came in there, we like cleaned that up. That probably had quite an impact. But also like, the post title. So, Jet, he wrote like a lot of tips for cats and stuff like that. But people don't really Google like tips for cats. Like they're more specific, right? So we sort of just changed the post titles and the content to sort of tailor more into what people are actively looking for through Google and in general. Then, yeah, if a website hasn't published new content in ages and it's kind of outdated, then, well, Google probably doesn't like that, right? So we just sort of, updated all the content and, made sure the proper dates were showing in Google. And we just published new content, right? To kind of say like, hey, Google, we're still alive. Like, we're running and you should really pay attention to us because here we go, right? That was the Reawakening. Second one, yeah. So that's the bunch of new content. And the third chapter is acquiring and merging sites into it. So We have also bought like, just basic, it's not fancy, just reaching out to, different cat sites and different pet sites. They're saying, hey, we're interested in buying if you're selling and would you willing to jump on a call and stuff like that. Of course, also looking at like, the different marketplaces online. Like, for example, I know about one called Empire Flippers. I've heard it is quite good.
Never heard of them. They must be really awesome and have a really great podcast that everyone should go listen to.
For sure.
It's so cool to hear like this kind of chapters of that, to go from such a small number to where you are today in a competitive niche like that. It's so impressive and interesting the ways that you brought all that together, including like, potential acquisitions or, bolt-ons, kind of fold them up into the business.
Yes. So just for reference, so 100 visitors to 40,000 visitors a day. And that's happened in like 10 months. Yeah. But that doesn't happen every time for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you how long it took. So 10 months. Yeah. Crazy. I think a lot of people listening to this are going to be like, I need to get my game together.
Yeah. But we did also merge some sites in there. So that's maybe, yeah.
How many sites?
I don't have count. So some of them were just, sort of like smaller, like hobbyist cat sites with just like 100 traffic a day or something. Okay. And some of them were like, so then we put a total of like 4 sites in there or something like that. But the primary growth has definitely been just, the Hepper content getting and publishing new content. Yeah, I would say.
Amazing. Absolutely. It's really, really impressive. I love that you're like living proof of the thing that we've been talking about, which is, there's that synergy between e-commerce and content sites, and you can totally scale your portfolio when you work all that together. So it's fantastic. I'm getting a picture of what you're doing with Hepper, but I'd love to know, do you think that there's a key to running so many businesses in your portfolio simultaneously and yet successfully?
Well, there's one word, and that's the team. That's, the team is everything and the team is awesome. So, I mean, that's the key. And that's what a lot of, I couldn't do without them, of course, and they're everything. But to put it this way, like, sort of the entry into SEO and content sites and e-commerce is like, figuring things out yourself. But truly the next level and, the video games, the end game, like the next level is the teams. So basically management and leadership, that's the core to running multiple businesses successfully. Yeah.
Like if you were to talk to other entrepreneurs who would be, say, super curious about what you're doing, like, man, I want to like a setup like what you have. Is there any advice that you would give them, or maybe try to steer them towards certain opportunities that they might miss from time to time?
So in terms of so obviously if management and leadership is a big thing, I would definitely try and learn that skill set, which is, it's an ever, you never finish with that. And one thing I wish someone would have told me, I wish I would have known, is like there's no perfect way to be a leader or CEO. Like you find what you do and you just kind of harness it, you go with what you're good at and you try and just get that into the company. And yeah, I mean, there's no perfect how-to guide for how to be a leader or CEO and how to delegate, but there are some best practices, of course. How did I learn it? That's a good question. It was probably, obviously I started by taking the first step, right? Like, so I, found this first people in the Philippines, like when I was 16, something like that, trying that. And, of course, I was probably terrible at it, right? Like not knowing what I was doing, but you make those mistakes and you get just a little bit better feeling of what might work and what kind of works. And you just kind of build onto that and you build some practices and you build like systems and SOPs and you just kind of, it sounds intimidating and everything. And it was very intimidating to put up a job ad. Like, who was I to look for people to work for my little company? Like, looking at the CVs, like job interviews, like this was surreal, right? But you just have to get started, right? Like just try it and trust that by going and taking the first step and starting that first draft, that you will hopefully be able to learn from that and keep just pushing. For example, some of my first hires we did, I just looking back at that, like just, the job ad I put out was probably pretty terrible. Like my Facebook profile, I wouldn't trust that myself. If you want someone to work for your company, try putting a video out of yourself, like saying, hey, we got this cool company and this is me, look at me. Not like arrogant, but like, just be out there and, what would people want to, if they want to work in your company and really make it awesome and epic. And yeah, it was definitely hard work to learn and I'm still learning. But another part of this was also, I'm in Chaing Mai and there's some great people and, we're just sharing a lot of things that work for us. So that's also where I've learned a lot about management and leadership.
It's amazing. It's really inspirational that you were able to draw on so many sources, the people around you, to be able to grow and leverage things and personally grow in that process. But that's still feeling, I think it's a kind of bravery to still be young and be like, but I will build a team. I won't do this alone. I don't think a lot of people would do that. I don't think they'd be like, oh, I'm certainly not ready to hire anybody else. But even though you said, you made mistakes along the way and you had to learn, you still tried anyway, which I think is really impressive, doing what you did.
But also remember, it's not easy and there's so many bumps in that way. And also in terms of like, for example, doing the move to go to Chaing Mai, like I remember being on the airplane on top of Chaing Mai and like, okay, I'm landing now in 5 minutes. Like either this will be like 3 months, that's like amazing and I will learn and I will meet all these people. Or it was also like, what if this be like, I'll know no one and this will be like, I still had those thoughts, right? Like I think most people would. So yeah, I just believed in it and just kind of want to try it. And of course, out of high school, like it was a pretty privileged position to be in, and I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
I am still really impressed by that. I'm kind of gone and I've left my home country a couple times, and I did it at a young age as well. But I didn't do it with the headspace of I'm going to go and build a business. It was just kind of like a different set of priorities and different journey that I was on. So I think the whole kind of different narrative that you had going into it wasn't just like a backpacker's journey. It was like, I'm a budding entrepreneur and I'm committing to this is amazing. I really do think that so many people are going to be inspired by you taking that leap. And, I think there are a lot of people right now who might be at a place now in the pandemic where they might be able to make a move from their home countries to go somewhere else. But still, of course, having been trapped in for so long, afraid to make that move. So I think needing that push a little bit of seeing somebody else who'd done it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Going back to what I said before, so to continue from that. So, it was a very, I didn't really have any commitments, and it was a privileged position for that reason. So I could just go. But basically the way I saw it back then too was like, I can go to Thailand here, maybe it works out. That'll be amazing. That'll be awesome. But even if I go here and I don't really get my business off the ground, well, I'll probably had just a couple of months of fun and just try, people backpack to Thailand anyways, right? Like I'll probably get to hang out with elephants and like, so even if it all goes to, not good and I don't get any success and I just don't meet the right people, I probably still learned something and I could just go back to study again. But of course, I know that not everyone, I'm not saying this in an arrogant way, but I know, yeah, I'm very grateful for that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the right headspace to be in and be like, okay, well, failure wouldn't be the worst thing. I'm probably going to still have some fun. And hey, there'll be elephants. So I'll probably be okay.
Yeah, the elephants, yeah.
I would love to get a picture of what's next for you. How do you plan to scale Pangolia moving forward? Do you have any plans to try out new business models or expand into other niches?
So the main thing here really is, so we're just going to do more of what we've already done. Like this year is, don't want to jinx it. Like no new business models, no new niches, just do more of what we're already doing and just keep improving at it and keep consistently putting in those hours and just keep growing towards where we want to go. That's the one. Because the worst thing we can do now, so if, it's not like we're massively successful, like we're just finding a little bit of good stuff. So if you find a little bit of gold, you want to keep digging right there, right? Like you don't want to start looking for new gold. Like you just want to keep digging in that vein of gold and just find more gold where you're looking. So that's definitely just keep very tight focus on just pets. We want to become the most helpful and biggest pet company in the world. So that's what we're going to keep pushing for.
Awesome.
Yeah. And also like we're going to, try not to do too many acquisitions. Like, sometimes acquisitions end up being a little bit for the, the rush of like, yes, let's plug it in, let's make it work. But yeah, also just focus on what we have. Yeah.
I think that's the right headspace to be in. I think it goes back to an earlier point that we were talking about, just really trying to strike that balance. You don't want to overdo it. So easy to do when you are seeing the success of what you've built. Of course, you can get a little bit, looking at other opportunities and thinking, oh, these are all going to be golden opportunities. I think you have the right headspace in where it's like, okay, not everything out there is going to be golden. If I have something that works, like, let me just focus in on that versus thinking that there's something even better outside of what I'm doing. I think plenty of entrepreneurs make that trip up, but you seem to be well rooted in kind of growing what you have and not getting too carried away.
But that's because I probably also made that trip up like in the past. So before in 2019, we had too many different niches and too many sites, so many different things. So I think most entrepreneurs or most businesses make that mistake of like trying to do everything and thinking like, oh, now things are going well, like we can do whatever. And, we have these rose colored glasses on and everything we see is just opportunity and we can do it. But I sort of know if I try to go into like crypto and be like a day trader, my skills in what I'm doing now would probably not really apply that much to that crypto. So, I'm just going to try and and we are as a team going to keep just focusing on where we found a little bit of success and just keep moving on that.
Awesome. Well, I'm thinking of a personal question here, and it's probably going to be a difficult one to answer. But if you were to think about your whole journey coming to Chaing Mai and starting all these businesses, acquiring all these businesses, is there anything that you would have changed looking back on everything that you've done?
I would have traveled a little bit more before the pandemic. Like I still haven't been to Japan. I still haven't. But okay, business-wise or personal-wise, let me think. So this would probably be, one could argue that maybe I worked my ass off a little bit too much when I came here. And, some people would say like, oh, you're young, you should go out and enjoy it more. Like when I came here, I was in the mindset of like, I'm going to like work hard every day. I'm not going to party. Like I was 19 and I didn't party for the first 2 months I was in Chaing Mai, which was like, it took a lot of willpower. But for me, maybe putting in that time and just that grind early on, which was pretty exciting, then allowed me to get the business off the ground. And then now I'm still working hard and really, but now there's a little bit more room to potentially just take some time off and travel. So yeah, there's not really much I regret. Maybe working, a little bit too hard sometimes, potentially. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would recommend someone to work at the pace I've done sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's a great piece of advice and a good lesson to learn. I know Gary Vee, the infamous Gary Vee, is always talking about like that kind of a little bit of a hustle message, close your eyes and eat shit till you're 29 or something like that. And basically he's saying to work really hard until you're 30, whatever it is. But then I think he's gone back on himself and been like, yeah, you know what? I probably should have enjoyed that time a little bit more. I didn't have to go as hard as I did. And I think it's a really important message. Like time is the resource we can't get back. It's the most valuable one. Obviously work hard and build your dreams, but make sure you take a little bit of rest along the way. Granted, I know you've been stuck in a weird spot in Thailand during the pandemic. Asia, you're not really traveling much during the pandemic because of the closures. So I do hope that things open up and you finally get your trip to Japan and all the places you've been wanting to go.
Like everyone wants to go to Japan. Like that's the number one. Everyone.
Me too. Oh, I've been waiting. I've been anxiously just watching the border of Japan. And I have a good friend in Tokyo who's just like, yeah, we're not opening anytime soon. So I think I'll be waiting quite a bit of time, just like everybody else. What can you do? Well, anyway, Simon, this has been tons of fun. I've loved hearing about your journey. It's so fascinating to hear what you did at such a young age. I think it's really impressive. It's going to be really inspirational for a lot of people listening. When we wrap things up, we like to do just a couple rapid fire questions, if you're cool with that.
No, yeah, that's a joke. Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome. Yeah. I ask people if it's okay, but really like they're stuck with me. So they're just going to do it anyway.
Oh yeah.
So
just give me those questions like so I can get on with it. Yeah. No,
first one, what are the best hidden growth opportunities within online business in your opinion?
So for content sites, it would be, this is a big one, write posts that journalists may be looking for. So yeah, that maybe requires a little bit of more. Yeah. So write posts that journalists are looking for. So, you want to create content, yes. But also, if you're in the solar panels industry or niche with your content site, well, what kind of things do you think a journalist would be wondering one day when they're writing about solar panels? They want to source about like, how much does it cost to set up? So if you have that article about like, how much does it cost to install or even just, manufacture or all those sort of things, those solar panels, then those big newspapers might end up using you as a source and link to you. And that's like a passive link you get there. So, how much does it cost? Maybe some facts about solar panels, all these different posts. So that's a big one. Yeah. I think a lot of people do.
Actually, I think that's a great piece of advice. Probably in the
and,
same
and one
vein.
more, if I had to, build relationship with your affiliate managers. So they're human businesses, relationships, talk, help each other. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that one a lot. I guess in the same vein, what would you say are tools or resources that can help people optimize their content sites?
Ahrefs, and then there's no magic tool or method like, so for content sites, the way I would put it, it's primarily a question of having a site with strong technical fundamentals, and then it's just about content and links. So don't overcomplicate and overthink it. Use Ahrefs and don't have too many tools. Yeah.
Awesome. Final question. What has been your funniest moment working within online businesses?
Okay, I was thinking a lot about this one, and funny, yeah, it's hard work right now. Yeah, there's definitely been some fun moments. I think one of the funniest would be, don't take this in an arrogant way, like this is just, kind of like, yeah, I'm not arrogant. So basically, I think one of the funniest would be when I'm sitting down with a friend. And then once he was like, oh, you should check out this site. Like they're growing so much or they're doing so much. And then he's like talking about the site. And then that site is like mine. And he doesn't know it's mine. And then I'm like just trying to say, oh, what are they doing? And it's kind of funny to like hear how they're like overthinking some of the things. Like he must be doing that. And I was like, nah, it's not really like, it's so tempting in that scenario just to like say, this is mine or whatever, feed the ego, right? But, just they still don't know it's mine or whatever. Like that was just a fun thing. I don't know.
You never told them?
No, I haven't, and they will never know. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
But why do we not tell about our sites? Well, obviously I can tell about Hepper. That's no problem. It's in the pet industry. Like, surprise, it's an okay industry, but so are so many others. And there's a brand, and it's hard to get to where it is anyway. So I'm not too afraid of that. And I'm not afraid. But just like, it's just a normal principle within like online marketing and kind of like content sites. Like, we don't just mention all our sites. Like it's just a little bit for just for, keeping, I mean, it's great sites and it's great content, but just to give a little bit of a competitive advantage and not to like have everything out there for, people to dig into and,
Sure.
But like reverse,
That's so funny.
Competitive, yeah.
Oh, what a strange moment to have a nice compliment as well.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's, you really got to hold your ego back when that happens. So tempting. But also, I think that happens, I'm living in this bubble a little bit maybe of like online marketing and remote teams and, like content sites. And like, I'm not much into crypto, but like, sometimes you're in that bubble and you feel like maybe everyone else is like sort of, thinking that too. But it's a little bit like a bubble of like, a new movement or community. Yeah, I mean, it happens quite often that like, sort of been looking at for a while, like, oh, that's the one that's for sale right here in Empire Flippers or whatever. Like, it seems quite small sometimes. Yeah.
It's very cool just to hear holistically your whole journey, where you've landed. I think you're in a really good spot, sounds like personally and professionally with where you're going. So it's been really cool to get you on and hear like a younger person's journey. I hear it from time to time interviewing sellers in the past. I'll get like a couple young ones, but I don't get somebody who started so young and built so consistently the way you have. So definitely a treat to have you on and to hear about your personal journey.
Thanks. It was a pleasure to be on. And yeah, awesome. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, rooting for you. Can't wait to see what you do next. And, maybe when the world opens up, we'll cross paths at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah. In Japan, right?
In Japan. Yeah. That's where we go. That's the goal.
Sure.
That's the benchmark. So
yeah.
I'll see you in Japan at some point, and best of luck in the meantime.
Likewise. It was a pleasure.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope you've walked away with a bit of new insight that'll help you in your digital entrepreneurship journey. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To learn more about businesses available for sale at Empire Flippers, click the link in the description or visit empireflippers.com/marketplace. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.